Hello, everyone. Welcome to CounciLIVE, your live stream source on the most important issues in early childhood education today. I'm Savannah, your host of CounciLIVE, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to our special guest speaker, Vilma Williams, our manager of multilingual and special programs at the Council for Professional Recognition. Today, Vilma will be speaking on such a rich and exciting topic, dual language learning and communication. Vilma, who is trilingual in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, has inspired, taught, and served in the early childhood community for 35 years. She's received numerous awards for her work, particularly with Latinx children, families, and communities, with migrant communities, with indigenous nations within the United States, within our military community, and for her international work on behalf of the Council for Professional Recognition. She also studied early childhood education in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, Catholic University, and the University of D.C. So join us today as we dive into such a vital subject for anyone who works with young children. In fact, we believe it's so critical that it's actually one of our functional areas under our core competencies for anyone who wants to earn their CDA, their Child Development Associate credential. So whether you're a family member, a parent, a director, an educator, this conversation is for you. Over to you, Vilma.
Hello, and welcome to CounciLIVE. My name is Vilma Williams. I'm the manager for the multilingual and special programs at the Council. And I'm very excited to present to you today communication. As adults, we communicate with each other constantly, every day, almost always. We could say that being able to communicate is vital in our lives. When we communicate, we express our thoughts, ideas, information, and experiences. We use our words when we write, and even when we use nonverbal cues. How do we get there? Where do we begin developing communication skills? Are some of us better in communicating than others? We develop our communication skills from birth. In our field of early childhood education, when we talk about communication, we talk about language and literacy development. Language and literacy development are closely related. Gaining language skills, both talking and listening, supports reading and writing, and vice versa. As children develop language and literacy skills, they can explore and learn content. And how this happens? When does this all begin? The baby's brain is primed for acquiring language. They are ready to learn all. How? It's very simple. Children don't learn like us. They don't see it in classes. They learn by doing, by exploring, by experiencing. They learn when they are around caring and responsible adults who talk with them, engage them in conversations, even when they are very little. Read to them every day in nice, sing songs, rhymes, etc. Actually, we are the ones who do all the talking. Sometimes we look like crazy. Like when we're changing a diaper, we talk about, I'm going to raise your legs and I'm going to put this diaper. Oh, you're wearing size number 2, you're growing. So you're doing all the talking. When they have adults like that, and if you're that type of adult, you're giving them one of the best gifts you can give a young child, the gift that is going to last a lifetime. The gift of providing them with appropriate opportunities to develop language and literacy skills. Young children need intentional, meaningful experiences every day to acquire the foundation of language and literacy. But what experiences are those? Simple. Any experiences that ensure vocabulary development in language, like songs, hearing the different sounds, rhythms of language, and enjoying books and stories, relevant in exploring writing. Researchers have found that language experiences in early childhood are one of the most reliable ways to predict their reading ability by 3rd grade. So, the more words a child knows, the more he or she understands when someone reads to him, and later when he or she learns to read himself. Once children fall behind, it's very difficult for them to catch up. You can make sure that this does not happen to your children. You have always heard the window of opportunity, from birth to 5, there's a window of opportunity that children learn anything. And that window closes, never shuts. But when it's kind of closes when we're adults, and it's hard to learn something new when you're a grown up or when you're older. But at this time, between birth and 5, is when the opportunities present themselves. So take those opportunities, because if you don't, they're gone, never to come back. So the children in your program should hear and learn language a lot. There is so much to learn in touch related to the subject, in communications, language, and literacy, but I am going to focus just on basically a couple of things that I have selected for this short session. Over my 35 years of experience in the field of early childhood, I have encountered some educators who, under the pressure of others, are trying to teach things like letters, the words, flashcards, memorization of words, even blended consonant sounds, initial consonant sounds, to very young children. There's a little confusion still on how to prepare children for academic success in elementary school. So what and how should we teach? One of the big jobs that we have as early educators, differently than the teacher in elementary. So we need to really know what is our job in relationship to language and literacy development. One of our biggest jobs is to promote children's phonological awareness. And what is this? This is the ability to hear and distinguish the sounds, the ability to hear that there are small units in the sounds in the spoken language. During the early years of life, the brain is very receptive to learning the sounds that make up language. Every language has their very own set of sounds that are used to form words. These sounds are called phonemes. When children are around adults who talk and sing to them, they pay attention to the sounds and rhythms of the language they hear. For example, by around 6 months, let's say, the infant can learn to babble and they repeat sounds and they make up the language they hear. About 7 months to 10 months, babies begin to ignore the phonemes that are not used in the home language. So they don't practice that. They stop listening to those phonemes. 2-year-olds can develop sound awareness, which is the ability to notice and recognize different sounds, which is the first step of phonological awareness. Even the newborns can distinguish mom and dad's voices from other voices or noises around them. So that is our job as early childhood educators, to talk with children, play songs, sing the lyrics, recite nursery rhymes. We need to know why we're singing these songs. And, you probably heard Rafi songs, down by the bay, where the water runs cold, I left my stall, my home. Everything is rhyming and it's fun, but it's learning. This is the foundation for later on when they go to school. The more they have these experiences, the faster they will learn to read and write. That is how important it is. So lyrics of songs, finger plays, nursery rhymes, to help them become aware of the sounds and rhythms of their language. So make sure that these experiences are part of your daily work with children to help them develop phonological awareness, which is, again, the foundation of reading and writing. We're talking now about dual language learners, because undoubtedly you are going to have some children who are going to be in your care and education that will be in one of these situations. But let's talk about what are dual language learners. Dual language learners are children who are learning 2 languages, whether they're learning them simultaneously or they're adding 1 language to their home language. So infants and toddlers who are exposed to 2 languages at home or in early childhood programs have a great opportunity to learn this language and develop these languages simultaneously. However, so this is called simultaneous dual language acquisition. However, when the children are 3, 4, 5, and children whose language is not English, whose home language is not English, they begin participating in preschool or family childcare homes. They have almost established their basic language. And for them, the opportunity is to learn another language. This is referred as sequential dual language acquisition. So early childhood programs can offer opportunities for second language acquisition also to children whose home language is English. So everybody wins when you have situations like that, like this. We need to understand also some basic information about dual language learning. Number one, the home language is the foundation for cognitive growth. What does this mean? It means that children, when they everything they know in their home language can transfer to the new language. Therefore, you should teach these children beginning reading skills in their home language, songs, rhymes, books. Children will readily learn the English alphabet once they have mastered letter and word recognition in their home language. It becomes easier because it just transfers. Children feel valued when their home language is respected. This has a lot to do with self-esteem and confidence. And when you value them for who they are, when you respect their language, they receive the message that their home language and cultures are very important. Families value when you value their home language and when you respect their home language. And when we talk about establishing relationships with the families, that's a very nice sentence, and you can learn it in school and you can repeat it, but unless you put it into practice, and this is part of what you have to do, the respect for the language of the home is going to be valuable and essential to the child's learning. Infants and toddlers learning two languages simultaneously acquire them in a similar way. On the other hand, the preschoolers who already understand their language learn a second language in a different way. So let's talk about that. They go through stages. Preschoolers go through stages. The first stage is the home language only. When initially they speak their own language only, the language they understand. Then there's a possibly period of silence. This could even be for 1 year. Children absorb the other language and they observe and listen. And they require, they rely on gestures to communicate. And then begins at the period of action, showing understanding. So you tell them, give them instructions and they'll understand, but they don't speak. They follow instructions. They can participate in activities as directed. Then comes the period called formulaic speech, where children begin to use short phrases and words to communicate. Then they go to the informal language, sometimes called playground language too. Children speak in sentences and communicate very well, but the language tends to be informal. And the last one is when you acquire academic fluency. So the preschoolers begin to learn language and speak the new language just like their home language almost. And they begin to speak in a more complex and sophisticated sentences. I remember when my son learned the word actually, he will put actually in front of every sentence. Actually, I want you to give me my dinner. Actually, I love you, mommy. Or even, when he learned even, he will use even for everything. Even, let's go to bed. Even, I want this. So it's very nice to see how they use that language. And the more they use it, the more vocabulary, the better they're going to be when they go to elementary school. But there are some ideas here. We have some ideas on how to promote dual language learning. And this has to be done in a very respectful way, in a non-abrupt way. For example, some ideas are make eye contact with the children as you speak with them. But be careful, because when you talk about children from other cultures, you have to be aware of things. In America, we're very used to telling the children, look at me, look in my eyes. In some cultures, be careful, because indigenous cultures, Latin American cultures, looking at you in your eyes is kind of defiance. So you have to be aware of those little things that are different. But it's a good idea to look at them. make eye contact. Repeat what you say, of course, in a very nice way. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So repeat it. Learn a few key words and phrases in the child's language. Say good morning, buenos dias, bon dia, guten morgen, whatever you have. Learn, it's easy. That gives them the idea that they are so important. She cares for me. I'm so good. I'm an important person. Ask colleagues, families, and community volunteers to suggest ways to enhance communication. What is the best way to communicate with your baby? Or another teacher, could tell you, I had him last year, and the best way to communicate is this way. So take advantage of that. If you are fluent in the child's language, in the other child's language, think about ways where you can enhance those conversations. Work with children one-to-one. Be intentional when you're planning, so you can make small groups to give you an opportunity to be with that child one-on-one. Use visual supports like photos, illustrations, props, gestures, and puppets. Learn a few welcoming words in all languages. Post keywords and phrases around the room to help you, through the surroundings. Select books in which the illustrations closely match the text to help children discern word meaning. But also select books where the child can find themselves portrayed in there, with pictures that show my culture. That boy in that picture looks like me. Of course, the babies are not going to tell you that. Even 3 and 4 sometimes cannot say, hey, teacher, this book doesn't have anybody that looks like me. But they will feel it. They will feel it. There are also some dual language learning myths, things that people believe that are true but are not true. So we're going to go over them. Number 1, children who are exposed to more than one language are disadvantaged. Some people feel that way. Bilingual children, and that is not true. Bilingual children are often very creative and good at problem solving. They can communicate with more people, read more, and benefit more and travel. They will have an additional skill when they enter the workforce. Next myth is learning 2 languages at the same time confuses a child. Not true. The fact is that children do not get confused, even when they combine languages in one sentence. Mixing languages is a typical and expected part of learning and speaking 2 languages. The only ones confused are the adults. The next myth is people believe that learning 2 languages as a young child will slow down children's readiness to read. The fact is the opposite. Because they have been exposed to the sounds and letters, combinations of 2 languages, they usually learn to decode words well. Next myth. When children are exposed to 2 languages, they never become as proficient in their language, in either language, as children who must master only one language. Not true. The fact is, if they constantly and consistently use both languages, children can become proficient in both languages. Next myth is only the brightest children can learn 2 languages without encountering problems. Most children have difficulty because the process is so complex. Not true. The fact is, nearly all children are capable of learning 2 languages during the early childhood years. While the process may be complex for adults, young children's brains are still developing the structures for language, so they are able to learn multiple languages. It is very known, the fact that children in Europe, for example, learn 7 languages. I have a nephew whose mom is like me from South America. He speaks Spanish, Swiss German, Italian from the nanny, and I think he also speaks French. So all learn at the same time. Remember the window of opportunity. When children are very little, from birth to 5, they can learn anything. But then as adults, we're the ones having difficulty learning, because not only because of the ability, but also because we have other things like my accent, what are people going to say, and all of that. And all those factors don't help in learning. But we're talking about young children and the opportunity for them to learn. Knowing your important role of the development of children's language learning is the starting point for planning your classroom or family childcare program, selecting materials and guiding children's development and learning. It's important to remember that our job as early childhood educators is like a gardener. You know, when you plant flowers, you put the seeds, you do the dirty work, you put your hands in the soil and you fertilize it and you put all those seeds, right? That's our job in early childhood. Because one day you're going to see the sprouts coming out, and maybe one day you'll see the flowers, but maybe you won't even see them. Those will happen in elementary. So this is how communication skills, language and literacy skills develop. We have that work, the foundation of the work, teaching them the sounds, exposing them, giving them that experience. Remember that in addition to knowing how children typically develop in this area of language, you must also learn about the unique characteristics of each child in your program, each family. Get to know them. What language do they speak at home? Where do they live? What do they do? What do the families do? So you can use that information to embed it into your language, into your conversations. On behalf of all of us at the Council, we wish you much success in your work with young children and their families. And remember, learning is not an event, it is a process. Thank you.